girl, your friend group is cooked, okay? I don't know if you have a friend group or if you're thinking about joining a friend group, if a friend group is something that you want, okay? If it's something that you want, listen up and listen closely, okay? Because I have unpacked the science of friend groups, all right? I know what I'm talking about. So let's talk about how friend groups always start off super, super strong, strong as hell, airtight, and then slowly turn into something else. Slowly spiral into tension, drama, or just simply fade into silence. Trust me, I've been there and I've watched it happen more than once. It's low-key happening to me right now. But we're not gonna talk about me. We're not gonna talk about me today. We're gonna talk about the collective, because I've zoomed out, and when I zoomed out, it all really started making sense. It truly started clocking to me, because in retrospect, they all follow the same patterns, and I'm gonna break them down. Get in, sister, we're unpacking. Here is why most friend groups tend to implode, and we're left wondering, what the hell happened? Mismatch in friendship styles. Now, some people view friendships as these really deep bonds, okay? They say, if I call you my friend, you have to be my sister, period. I have to trust you with my life, my spirit, my everything. While other people just treat it like it's just a good vibe, light vibes only. And this is what actually causes the most disconnect. Let's explore why. Unspoken expectations. If you have one person that sees friendship as we ride at dawn no matter what, and the other friend thinks of friendship as I just like to hang out and we don't have to share our entire life story. Here we have two friends that have their own version of friendship, but nobody is actually saying that, and therefore nobody is expressing their wants and needs from said friendship. And this is exactly why, before you get into friendships, before you seek out friendships, you've got to have a very good understanding of you. What kind of person you are, what kind of friendship you personally need at this point in your life, because that can always change. If you don't know and you don't think about these kinds of things, what's going to happen is you're going to find yourself confused about why you're not getting what you need. I also talked about this in my last video, so if you haven't seen it already, just go ahead and watch that, okay? Thank you. Mismatch in emotional investment. Someone may be all in emotionally, while the other one is just here for brunch and dinners, all right? Like I said before, one is a big jump from the other, and that imbalance can lead to resentment or accusations of one person being too cold or the other person being way too much. You also could say the same thing with trust, because for some people, you know, if they call you their friend, right, they're gonna trust you right off the bat. For other people, they may call you their friend, but they still need just a bit more evidence that they can trust you. They might have to just take more time to fill you out. It is painfully clear, I think we all should know this by now at this juncture, that everybody is going to have their own approach to friendships and their own definition of what a friendship would mean to them personally. Maybe they have different levels of friends, maybe they compartmentalize their friends like I tend to do. Girl, no, cause why is my bun coming undone? Hold on. Alright, now that we got the buns back, acting right, okay, we have our own friendship needs. You can love your friends and not have the same exact definition of friendship, but what's important is that this is talked about with your friends. Talk about your expectations, talk about how you operate as a person, and talk about how you navigate friendships in your day-to-day life. Try to come to an understanding about how all of your friendship styles can meet in the middle, but don't expect to be surrounded by people who are just gonna read your mind. All right, that's not realistic. That's not gonna happen. And also, if you find that your friendship style is just not meshing with everybody else's, maybe you're just not meant to be in that friend group, or maybe you're just not meant to be friends, and that's cool too. It's okay to cut the cord, sis. Hop your tail on out of that friend group and find a new tribe. Find a tribe that is a better fit for you. if you want that. Poor conflict resolution skills. Friendships just don't fall apart because conflicts happen. Okay, conflicts are gonna happen, that's normal. Friendships fall apart because people don't know how to repair. Okay. It's ego and avoidance. Now, in most cases, instead of working through issues, people ghost, post subs on their stories, or wait for other people to just patch things up for them or come crawling back. Lots of people don't even realize how much their ego is involved when it comes to conflict and how much their ego gets in the way of connection or repair. I mean, folks will let their ego ruin anything. I personally think that if someone didn't hurt you on purpose, okay, and there was no, malice behind it, it was just a misunderstanding of sorts, right? There really isn't any need to hold any heavy long-term grudges, girl. Like, what's going on? Is you cool? That's just me. That's just me though. Over identification with being right. Do you know how that goes? Even when somebody is wrong, they may double down out of shame or pride, not realizing that repair is more important than being right. Back in my day, when I was younger, my dad used to tell me this all the time growing up because I grew up with brothers and I'm the youngest, okay? So I'm the only girl and I'm the baby, okay? But my dad used to tell me, do I care about having a relationship with my brother or do I care about being right? And that's actually valid in a lot of cases. We can apply that to a lot of things. Now, of course, I don't mean like major, egregious, harmful things, okay? But I mean, when we're talking about petty drama, of course, we always want to be right and we want to feel validated by the people around us. We want everybody else to tell us we're right about this petty stuff too. But what happens way too often is that we let this petty stuff get in the way of fixing a misunderstanding or just agreeing to disagree and keeping it moving. Sister, friends are not gonna agree with you on every freaking thing you do or say. And that's life. It just be like that sometimes. Suit up, buttercup. Delayed reactions. Sometimes people don't process conflict so quickly in the moment. I know for me, often when there's conflict as a recovering people pleaser, I like to jump into repair mode quickly, and like smooth things over and say, I'm sorry, even if I'm not wrong, I still be saying I'm sorry anyway, just because I don't want my friend to feel like she's hurt by me. And it also does take me some time after a conflict or a misunderstanding to just like sit back and process what was said, what was implied, what was the meaning behind that, what's their perspective, and what's my truth, okay? So it does take me a little bit of time to process that. But what I will say is I don't drag it out like 2-3 months and not say nothing about it. I always like to make sure I say how I feel like as soon as possible. If you drag it out longer and you're harboring feelings, that will really come across in a bad way later. So if you and your homegirl have a fight, 2 months back and you've been keeping all your feelings about it in for 2 months, and then y'all have another fight, and then in that fight you're just spilling out all the bad things you felt from before, it's like, what are we talking about? That's absolutely gonna make things worse, okay? And then your homegirl is about to be like, she was holding this in the whole time, that's weird. And then it turns into something different, and it doesn't even have to be all that. And that's why it's way better to just be upfront about how you feel as quickly as you possibly can, okay? Really sit with your feelings, really sit with your friend's perspective, sit with your perspective, and just be honest about how you feel. Speak up, because the sooner you speak up, the better opportunity for repair. Honestly, if you can't talk through issues with your friends or at least admit when there's some kind of tension between you, that friendship is bound to end anyway. Power plays and emotional control. Friend groups become really unstable when emotional safety is replaced with secret battles for power and control and validation. That's when things get into chaos mode. When people haven't processed their own trauma and their own wounds and their own inner child mess, they can start using friends not just as support, but as outlets to feel powerful, validated, or superior. Weaponizing emotions. When people start using shame and guilt, silence, or crazy or violent outbursts to get their way, instead of using their adult words to respectfully communicate how they feel, that is a red flag. Okay, that's never something we want to do. When people can't regulate themselves, when they're hooting and hollering and fighting and screaming and all types of stuff, and it actually becomes unsafe for them and unsafe for other people around them, that is a super red flag. And it shows that possibly they're willing to blow everything up, okay, blow up the spot, just because they don't have a journal or a meditation practice. Okay, something to think about. Alliances in group politics. Once the friend group has many alliances or tiny cliques forming, right, inside the group, that is when people are pressured to choose sides when it comes to a conflict. So instead of friends being in a safe circle, it kind of becomes a game of survival. It kind of becomes this like test or a big judgment of who's real and who's not real and who's good and who's bad, when most likely everybody in the group has had their own fair share of doing good, doing bad, being right, being wrong, all of that. But sister, if your friend group is feeling like you're in an episode of Survivor or Love Island where people are forming alliances, strategizing on who is in the group or out of the group or who gets the vote in or the vote out, all that type of stuff, girl, that is when you know the friend group is absolutely doomed. At the end of the day, friend groups fall apart when the environment stops feeling safe. And it really only takes one person out of the friend group to turn it into that kind of environment, especially if other people in the group aren't extremely regulated themselves. And that kind of creates somewhat of a snowball effect, if you will. Having a successful friend group isn't about everybody in the friend group being perfect. But it does mean that everybody involved is gonna have to be emotionally honest, mature, regulated, and safe. So if that isn't the bare minimum or the baseline, baby, hang it up. Hang it straight up. Otherwise, the group will always collapse under its own emotional weight and its own shaky foundation. Well, that's all I have for this video. Of course, let me know what you think in the comments. Have you ever been in an insane friend group and you were wondering, wait, how'd I even get here? How'd we all get here? I would love to hear about it. Leave me a comment. Okay, please like, share, and subscribe. As always, stay gorgeous, and I will see you in the next one.
I get you what you want.